Hello and welcome back to the Out of the Park Developments YouTube channel. My name is Alex Murray, also known as AZ Excellent. Today we are continuing our tutorial series for beginners, or the introduction to OOTP 22. Today, tutorial number 14 is going to be covering the free agency, contract negotiation for players and what you need to know about that. And lastly, for the off-season, which is basically the Offseason Events Part 2, the Rule 5 Draft. So if you've got your OOTP games open, go ahead and turn on over to that, and let's get started. Alrighty, we have begun the off-season free agency. As you can see on the top of our scheduling area, we have our free agency filings that have begun today. We have already gotten our email stating exactly who of the top players we should be potentially interested in. You get emails right as the free agency begins, and it'll let you know, as you can see on this list right above my head, all of these different people who are available that we could be interested in picking up, and one of them is actually one of our former players, Freddie Freeman. So we'll see if we can re-sign Freddie for a better contract than what he was asking for with a contract extension. We may also be looking at other players who join free agency over the course of this couple of days. As you can see right below our free agency filing email, we have another email that states that there have been some international free agents who have become available for the MLB in terms of being signable. And you can see even one of them is a pretty decent little relief pitcher, so we might be interested in Hirano here. So you can look through all of those. Of course, there's not that many this time around. You can change this to have more or less players depending upon what you would like. And of course, those are all randomly generated players. So those are all depending upon your league settings, which we'll talk about in future tutorials down the road. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get you started with the Offseason Center area. This is where you're going to spend most of your time looking for free agents. On the left, you can see all of the really cool free agents that are available. They range from Max Scherzer to Castellanos, Arenado, and Freeman are here, of course. We could go out and sign some really big names if we wanted to, and we do have some money available to do that. However, I think for this example, we're going to try to reacquire Freddie Freeman. We didn't like what he was asking for in terms of a contract extension during the regular season. He was looking for upwards of, I believe it was $37 to $42 million. And we are more inclined to offer him somewhere around 34 to 35. So what you can do to offer people contracts during free agency is to simply right-click on their name and go to Offer Contract. Or on this screen, you can go and just click on the Offer Contract button, and it will take you right into our contract negotiations page. And we're going to spend a little bit of time here to let you guys have some information about exactly what you need to know regarding this page. So let me go ahead and move myself out of the way so you guys can see all the information down here. So right off the bat, in the bottom left-hand side is going to be your team financial section. This is going to be all of the information you need regarding your team. How much money you have for free agents, how much money you have for free agents next year, because it takes into effect multiple years. Your owner will not appreciate it if you spend a lot of money this season, if that means that next year you're, out of money and completely in the red. So sometimes your owner will nix a deal or an offer because the future contract statements or situations are not going to be profitable for your organization. So keep an eye on both of these just in case they cause you some problems. But as you can see, Freddie Freeman, very, very much more of a realistic contract demands here at this point. He wants about 7 years of a major league contract, and he would be a compensation player if someone else signs him. So we aren't really stressed to sign him, but we would like to sign him if possible. I'd love to see him retire as an Atlanta Brave. That would probably be the best possible situation for Mr. Freeman at this point. Something else to note is that you can see how much money will be left after you sign the player if you get him at the rate that you're offering right now. So let's go ahead and after reviewing all this contact information here on the left side, let's talk a little bit about the money stuff and what different options you have regarding players. Now, Freddie Freeman is demanding a 7-year contract with an annual salary of about $32 million. That's what he's asking for, totaling $224 million. You can see it up here on the top of the screen. That goes into this 7-year figure where it starts at 27 million and ends up at 32.8 for 6 of the 7 years. Now, you can always change these and try to make it a little bit better either for you or for the player. Sometimes giving the player a better deal means that you don't have to fight for them. They will sign instantly without having to, have negotiations or other teams swipe the player from you, because the last thing that you want to have happen is you try to sign a big name person and then somebody else raises the contract about $5 million, and then you have to counter that, and it just keeps going up and up and up until eventually the bigger organization wins. If it's the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Dodgers, they will outbid you, most likely. Now, you can always try to keep them competitive and see if you can take away a lot of their money, but in all honesty, you're probably not going to want to spend something like $40 million on a Freddie Freeman. Now, we'll see how that goes in real life, because Freeman is still a free agent in real life right now. But regardless, for our situation here, we could choose to lowball Freddie Freeman a little bit. So we could say something like, you know what, for the first year, we're actually going to do it backwards. We want a team-friendly contract, which means for the first year, you get $35 million, Freddie. But then the second year, it's 34. And then the next year, it'll be 33. And then the next year, it'll be 32. And then 30. And then 28. And then 20, let's see, I can do an optional year. He wants a player option. We should go ahead and talk about this really fast. Now, the last season on his negotiated contract, what he offered to us, what he is looking for, he wants a player option on the last year. What that means is he gets to decide if he signs on for that last season or if he walks away from that last season. Technically, you can put this even on 2 back-to-back seasons if you wanted to. You could even put in a player opt-out clause somewhere in the middle. So like after year 3, if Freddie wants to opt out, we could do that and say, look, after 3 years, if you want to move on, you can. And this would be a great way for us to have a team-friendly contract that might even go down lower in value, because we might be willing to give him only like 24. If we only give him 24 million, that's not guaranteed. So our guaranteed value is only 102 because only the first 3 years are guaranteed. We could probably even drop these down to 30 million and then probably 28. Actually, that was what I had before. So 26 and then do 28 here instead. And that could be our offer to Freddie is, look, we'll pay you a lot for the first 3 years. And then you can choose to opt out, or you can stay, and your contract will go down $2 million every single year with a player option on your final year. Easy way for us to be able to see if he'd take that. Now, he also wanted to have a no-trade clause. What this means is that basically Freddie Freeman is given the option before you trade him to nix a deal that you're trying to do. So, be careful about aging veterans with no-trade clauses. They are not available to be traded if they don't want to be. And at that point, they're a pain to try to get rid of. So be careful about these no-trade clauses. Of course, you can also promise him a role on the team. We'd be okay with promising a starting lineup position. You can do this for certain pitchers as well, whether it's the starting rotation or a closer role. You can promise people that, and then they will be more likely to sign because they've been promised that. And if you don't pull through with that promise, they become very unhappy and they demand trades and they upset your team, and that's not good for your chemistry. All right? Now, the last things are the incentives. The incentives are a way for you as an organization to be able to get the most out of your player while giving them opportunities to make extra money. As you can see, Freddie already has $800,000 as a bonus if he wins the Most Valuable Player award at the end of the season. He also has asked for about $200,000, $190 in this case, if he is considered an all-star selection. I would also be willing to give him, let's see, for 650 plate appearances, I'd be willing to give you another $1 million. That's pretty good. That means that if Freddie Freeman stays healthy, has 650 plate appearances, not at bats, plate appearances, that includes walks, then he will earn another $1 million every single year. So this is a pretty good contract. This isn't too bad. We're giving him a lot for the first couple of years, but we are right now in a dynasty mode. We're pretty well settled for our team. We've got good pitching. We've got some decent hitting. We just need to get him back. So let's go ahead and ask for a response, and we'll see if he likes it. And he said it fits his needs. If another team tops the offer, he'll let us know. So we can go ahead and submit our offer. He likes this money, and I think a lot of Atlanta Braves fans would love this kind of a contract with Freddie Freeman. The player opt-out, probably not necessary to have, but I'm a big person in allowing a player to walk from a contract, especially when you have something like $30 million or $25+ million on a contract. If the player wants to walk, let them walk. Because if they're still doing that good by age 36, then they're having a great career. And that's not likely. So by the time that he hits 35, 36, when that player opt-out occurs, I'm going to assume that Freddie Freeman will be more than happy to stay for $30 million down to 24. All right? So we'll go ahead and submit our offer. That's how you do contract negotiations in OOTP. Let's talk about our last thing for the day, and that's going to be the Rule 5 draft. We should have a Rule 5 draft scheduled very, very soon. Hold on. Let me make sure that's applied here real fast. We'll get up to the Rule 5 draft, and I'll talk about that. All right, we have advanced up to the Rule 5 draft. My apologies about that delay right there. We also did go ahead and finally get our couple of signings done. Freddie Freeman basically told us that he was absolutely happy with the $210 million potentially in his deal. He has agreed to come back for us to play again for at least 3 more years. He has a $210 million 7-year deal in place if he wants to stay for the duration of that entire 7-year deal. We also reacquired Craig Kimbrell. He came back on a little smaller deal than what he was asking for, 7.5, 6.5, and then a 5-year player opt-out for a 3-year, $19 million deal. Now, he does have a no-trade clause, so hopefully he doesn't fall apart on us, but he had a really good season in Atlanta Braves uniform. So we are very happy to see if he can continue that up in the next couple of seasons, and he gives us just a veteran person in our bullpen to come back to our squad. We did lose Travis d'Arnaud. He ended up signing with Cleveland. We get a compensation for that, which we talked about in the last video about the compensations for qualifying offers. So we will get 1 supplemental first-round pick. With that, we won't get 1 because we reacquired Freddie Freeman. We also picked up one of those international free agents. This is Hirano. He's a ground ball pitcher who throws 99 to 101, sidearm slotted pitcher. We will be seeing how good he can pair up with Kimbrell, and he ended up getting about $5.5 million for about 5 years, with the last year being a player optional year. We also are trying to still acquire the likes of Tucker Barnhart and Lewin Diaz to help stir up some of our depth. But let's go ahead and talk about the Rule 5 draft while we are here. The Rule 5 draft is going to be a way for players to be acquired by new ball clubs if they're stuck in a organization's minor league system, or if they're just not on the 40-man, because basically the 40-man roster is going to protect your players from the Rule 5 draft. All right, we're just going to go ahead and read it right off the system here. Only teams with empty slots on their expanded rosters can select a player in the draft. You also have to have a 40-man roster spot available. So that's usually what I end up looking at is your 40-man roster. If you're full on your 40-man, you can't get someone. Players with more than 4 years of professional experience are eligible to be selected unless they are protected on a team's expanded roster. Again, the 40-man. Players drafted at the age of 18 or younger are protected for 1 additional year. They are eligible if they have more than 5 years of professional service, not major league service, just professional service. So that includes minor leagues. Each selected player that you get from the Rule 5 draft must be kept on the selected team's major league roster for the entire year, or if they don't want the player anymore, they have to be returned to the original team the player was picked from. All right? Even if a player is is traded away, I'm not even gonna try it. If the selected player is subsequently traded, he must remain on that new team's major league roster for the entire. So you can trade Rule 5 pickups. Okay, you just have to make sure that they're on the 40-man roster at all times, which most likely means they have to be on your active roster at all times. All right, here is the pool of players that are available so far. Let me scroll up to the top here so we can see if there's anybody that we really want to get off the list. So Church and Apostles here. O'Neal Cruz is available. Gabriel Moreno. Estevan Florial is here. Catcher named Julio Rodriguez. For a second there, I thought that was the outfielder, but that's not. And then in regards to pitchers, couple of relievers, it looks like. Couple of starters, including Jaziel De La Cruz, who is actually one of ours. So this is a prime example. This guy has enough service time that he officially, he has pro service of 5 years, which means he's now eligible for the Rule 5 draft. Now, he hasn't exactly done great. He's been okay, and he had a fairly decent season in AAA. Let me get myself out of the way for you guys to be able to see this. So De La Cruz is a prime example of someone we might actually put back onto our 40-man roster to protect from the Rule 5 draft, because he's actually not that bad. Now, you can very quickly find out who is going to be on the Rule 5 draft if you go to Players, Overview, All Players in the Organization, and then go to Customize. I mean, technically you should go to Default and then go to Customize. If you go to Miscellaneous Info and say On 40-Man and then Rule 5 Status. So Rule 5 eligible, meaning yes, is what we want to look for. So you can even do a filter if you'd like to. You can even do a filter, do Rule 5, and then say is eligible. And on our entire organization, we have 37 players who are eligible to be picked off the Rule 5 draft. So Arano is ours, De La Cruz is ours, and Weigel and Davidson are ours. So we may put all 4 of them on our 40-man roster, and we only have 27 people on said 40-man roster. So we are very easy. It'd be very easy for us just to be like, yeah, you guys are all going to be protected. We're not going to lose you guys right now. We're going to keep you guys nice and safe from anyone trying to take you from us. The rest of these people, I mean, and you can go through this list, figure out who you want to keep, who you don't want to keep. If you want to keep a good reliever or a good starter from getting potentially snagged from somebody else, you can do that. And then the Rule 5 draft is handled just like the first-year player draft. Every single time a team goes through, they get to make a decision. Now, some teams will opt to skip their pick. What that means is they basically said, no, we're not going to pick anybody, and they forfeit the rest of the draft. The rest of the Rule 5 draft, they are not allowed to pick. So you can see some teams have decided to pick players, some have decided not to pick players. Eric Haas got picked. Wow. Dexter Fowler's on this list. Willie Calhoun on this list. So our scout believes that we should pick up P.J. Higgins, a catcher. And that's actually not that bad of a catcher. We will actually go ahead and draft him. And then we'll go ahead and send him up to the next round. And he says we should pick up Honeywell Jr. if he wanted to. I'm going to say no, and we'll go ahead and skip the pick. I think we're pretty much at the end of what we'd be looking for at this point, unless we wanted to pick up a first base backup player or potentially a decent enough closer with Ishmael there. Maybe O'Neal Cruz wouldn't be too bad to give him a shot, but I think we're pretty well set. So we'll go ahead and skip, and we'll go ahead and auto draft, and because we skipped our pick, we are not allowed to pick anybody else for the rest of the draft, so we will go ahead and auto complete that. And again, because we did that, that player has to be on our 40-man roster at all times. Now, we could come right back into our 40-man roster and be like, you know what, Higgins? Once we get Tucker Barnhart signed or someone else signs with us, we don't need you. We can always simply release the player, and they will go right back to the Chicago Cubs, which was the Rule 5 team that had him before we did. All right, so you don't have to keep them if you don't want them. But if you release them, they will go back to their original teams. We're going to keep him for right now in case we have any problems. But that is the Rule 5 draft, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys had some fun listening to part 2 of the off-season events and what you can see and experience in the off-season events. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask those in our comments section down below. We will wrap up our tutorials with 2 more. We're going to do finances and budgeting, and then personnel are the last 2 on our list. So I hope you guys stay tuned for those. I will see you guys in the next video.